That's nice. It went live while I was setting up. So hi everyone. Hope you weren't so bothered by the sound. Welcome. Today's video is on how to encourage independent play, which I think is kind of like the holy grail of working and parenting from home. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I just like to share that to all of those who joined the group call that we had right before this live. Thank you so much for coming on. It was so nice to see, actually see other people and hear your experiences. And I look forward to having this call every week. For those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about, I do free weekly sessions. It's a group session every week on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Spanish time. And basically the idea is to just have a space where we'll be able to share our experience and just get that feeling that we are not alone, right? Because right now we're all in our homes, we're all looking at Facebook, at WhatsApp, and we know that there are other people out there also in their homes, but it's nice to actually see and hear them. So that's that's the idea behind the group. So I highly recommend that you come join us. Again, it's every Tuesday at 5 p.m. We do it through Zoom. And you can find the link on the Facebook page. If you go to events, you can find the link there. Okay, so on to what we're all here for, which is how to encourage independent play. So I like to ask you, what is your child's current favorite game? Okay, what game or toy or what's something that your kid likes to do that kind of takes them into a state where they're super focused. Okay? Please write it down in the comments, or if you don't want to share, that's fine. Just, think about it. If you don't know the answer, then I highly suggest that you spend some time observing your child playing to know what the answer is, because this answer leads into what I'm going to talk about today. Okay, so the first tip I have in order to encourage your child's independent play is to know your child's interest, right? Or schema. So schema is actually a thing that I just learned yesterday, coincidentally, and I really like it. So the idea is that your children go through different schemas. So this is something that all of you who are early childhood development teachers, you all know this. I just learned this yesterday. So the idea is that your kids, each child is kind of practicing a certain schema. And so there are a lot of different schemas. I'm just going to name 8 and explain them really briefly, just in case this is what your kid's doing. So there's connecting, right? So if you have the Lego, it's the idea of connecting things. There's enclosing, where if you have a box, they like to put things inside the box and closing it. There's enveloping, so they like wrapping things. Maybe if they have a doll, they like wrapping the doll in a blanket. There is orientation, which I don't really remember what it is, but I will put a link in the video description that explains all of these schemas, so don't worry. There is positioning, in the sense they like to put things together, side by side. There's rotation, so if your kid's going through this phase where they just like to see things spin, they're doing a schema of rotation. There's trajectory, where they like to see how things fall, basically. And then there's transporting. So if your child's in that phase where he likes to put all things in a box and then move the box, or if they pushing their doll in the stroller. So the reason why I'm saying that you should, or I recommend knowing your child's interest or your child's schemas, is that way when you offer a game or when you offer a certain toy, knowing that they are currently in these schemas or knowing what their interests are, then it's more likely that they'll want to play with it and that they will actually get like really absorbed into it, that they will be able to play independently. So what I learned about my kids is that my son currently is in the trajectory schema. So he loves to throw things, basically that, like everything he throws or he drops. And so I had set up over the weekend kind of like a water station where he had the opportunity to just kind of like play with water, and he really loves seeing just the water fall, right? And he's 20 months about, and he just like, he was there for more than 30 minutes just like watching the water and playing with the water. And so because he is in that trajectory schema, having that water station worked, right? So the idea is like knowing what your kid is interested in or knowing what he's working on so that you can provide activities that fit them, and not, maybe you have like this whole big idea and then you show it to them and they're just like, yeah, I'm not interested in that, right? So it's kind of like focusing it more on what your child likes or what your child's going through, as opposed to what you think your child would or should even like. And keeping this in mind, when you do offer it, that's my second tip, is to ease them into it. Okay, especially if they're used to always having you there, like directing their play or just like playing with them. Don't expect them to all of a sudden be able to play by themselves, right? So the idea is to maybe do it like in intervals, or to set it up and to stay with them until they get into that sense of flow, until they become absorbed in the play. And then be like, okay, I'm just going to sit here beside you. And that's kind of like, you don't have to tell them I'm going to be working beside you, but that would be the moment that you get your laptop. Or I'll just be over there and you're by the table. But again, it's with that idea that because they are really absorbed into what they're doing, then they don't need you there. But also realizing that if this is something new to them, if they're used to always being played with, that it might be difficult for them in the beginning. Another tip I have is don't intervene. So I like to kind of like compare playing for children with studying, right? Like just imagine that while your kid's playing, they're studying. So if your kid is studying, you wouldn't want to interrupt them. Well, ideally, you wouldn't want to interrupt them just to ask them like silly questions, right? So that's the same idea. Like if you see that your kid is really absorbed into what they're playing, don't come in asking a question. It's one of those things also that that I do, or that lots of people do, where you talk to them and you don't even look at them first, So the idea is that also, like, before you speak to them, to look at them, to see what they're doing and see, is this really a good moment for me to speak to them? Because if they're really absorbed, you don't want to break their concentration, because going back to the previous tip of easing them into it, if you keep interrupting them, then that's also what they're going to get used to. So it's kind of like leaving them be, right? And just letting them do what they're doing. Obviously, if it does seem like they're going to get hurt, or if they're playing with something dangerous, then you should intervene. But it's more just also realizing how often do we actually intervene their play that isn't necessary, right? Another tip that I have is pouring into their cup. So yesterday I talked about pouring into your cup. So ideally, after you've done that, then you're able to pour into their cup. So that what I'm trying to say here is having that connection time with them, either before or after, so that even though you are apart, even though you're working and they're playing, they still feel your connection, right? You don't have to be doing things together. in order to feel connected. And so some of the ways that you can pour into their cup is by playing with them. Like what we do, it's from Hand in Hand Parenting. It's called Special Time. So it's like you actually put a timer and you say like, okay, for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, for 15 minutes, whatever works for you, I will be with you. We will do whatever you want and I will follow your lead, right? So that's one way of really building that connection. Another way is also when you have those caregiving moments, it's to really be fully present with them, right? Depending on the age of your child, if it's changing the diaper, if it's helping them get dressed, brushing their teeth, having breakfast with them, right? Having any meal with them. It's really just really spending that moment with them. And that's kind of like the idea of pouring into their cup and really building into that connection that both of you would have. And the other tip that I have is to limit the toys. So again, it's very related to the first one, which is like to know your child's interests, right? And then to limit their toys, because sometimes when you have so much options out there in their playroom or in the living room or in their bedroom, wherever, it's a bit overwhelming, right? So it's like they start playing with one thing, and then they forget about it, and then they start playing with another thing, and then they start playing with this third thing. So it is important that they have access to toys, but a lot of times they don't need access to so many toys, right? So it goes back again to observing your child and seeing what toys is he actually playing with, right? How does he play? What toys do you think he actually wants there, and what toys are kind of just like distracting him? Okay, so those are more or less the ideas behind how to encourage your kids to play independently. Again, it's know your child's interests and schemas, ease them into it, okay? Don't intervene, pour into their cup, and limit their toys. Now, what I like to give as a warning is your expectations, right? When it comes to playing independently, you have to keep in mind your kid's age. Okay, obviously, younger kids won't be able to play independently for as long as older kids can. That it takes practice, right? It's going related to ease them into it. If your kid isn't used to playing independently, then you're not going to be able to, then you can't really expect them to play independently for an hour all of a sudden, right? But the good news is it's kind of like a muscle, right? It's practice. So the more that they do it, the more that they'll be able to do it for longer periods of time, right? It's just like how when you start lifting weights, maybe you can only lift 2 kilos, and then as you keep on doing it, the muscle gets stronger and you can start lifting heavier weights. So it's the same thing. Maybe in the beginning they can only play independently for 5-10 minutes, but the more they practice, it can go on for 10, 15, 30, an hour. Okay? So don't give up. And another thing I want to mention is personality, right? There are some kids that maybe will need you there to be with them. Maybe you don't have to be playing with them, but they need to be able to see you, or they need you beside them, while others will be more able to play in their room by themselves. So just kind of keep that in mind. The idea is really just to focus on your child and what their needs are, what their interests are. Okay. One last thing I want to mention when it comes to independent play is remember our current situation. Okay. By now, hopefully, most of us have kind of transitioned into what is our new reality. But it's still something different. It's still change. And even if we don't say anything to our kids, they are very sensitive to what our feelings are. So they do feel that uncertainty. And so it is also very normal if instead of wanting to play independently, your child is wanting to be with you, right? I suggest embracing it as much as you can. Obviously, if you still have to work, you still have to work. But just know that it is also normal for your kids to be clingier than usual, okay? So just to kind of like do a quick recap, some tips to help encourage independent play is know your child's interests and schemas, and then offer things related to their interests. Ease them into it, right? Maybe in the beginning you do have to play with them for a little bit, or you have to like set up the game or whatever they plan on doing, and then once they're fully absorbed, then you can take a step back. Step 3 is don't intervene when they finally are absorbed. Don't come in unless it's really necessary that you talk to them. Just leave them be. The 4th tip is to pour into their cup. Really build connection time throughout your day, so that even though you guys are apart, even though they're playing and you're working, you still feel connected. And the last one is to limit toys, right? Maybe just observe your kids more and see if all the toys that are out there are really necessary. And maybe it would be a good idea to also kind of scale back. Maybe do toy rotation, depending on your situation. That might help as well. We do actually practice toy rotation at home, and just so that like when they start getting bored of a toy, then we bring something out and it always has like, ooh, it's new. So that helps as well. And some things to keep in mind when it comes to independent play is to remember your child's age, right? Keep, your expectations, depending on the age. Remember the age of your child, even though they might seem like very mature, they're still children. It takes practice, right? It also depends on your child's personality. And finally, giving the current situation, it is also normal for them to be clingy. Yeah, that doesn't mean that makes it easier for you. So if they are currently going through a clingy period, I feel you. I'm going through the same with my son and my daughter. I'm going through the same with both of them. And so what I'm doing personally is just I'm trying to embrace it as much as possible. If I can be with them, I am with them. If they ask to play or to connect and I can't, I try to not tell them no. I try to say like, yes, when, so it's kind of like, it's going to happen, it just can't happen now. So it's like a more subtle no, but at least that way they know it's going to happen. It's not just like an outright no. That could actually be another tip as well. Yeah. So that's all for today. Tomorrow, Cheryl Engels is coming on. She's a nutritionist and a health coach. So she's just going to talk to us about how we can still eat healthily even though we are stuck at home. And she's going to share some tips. So I hope you enjoyed today's live. Once again, if you are listening and it's like, okay, I understand the theory, but how do I put this into practice, then I highly suggest you send me a message, okay? As a coach, this is what I do, right? I help you apply the theory into your own life, right? I help you gain clarity on your situation, and then from that clarity, we are able to take action, plan steps, in order to get you towards what it is that you want. Okay. I'm currently doing free sessions just for everyone and anyone who needs some help. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Bye.